I have known quite a few FBI agents, and I've worked with them for the last 5 or 6 years, and they've never asked me to compromise my morals or my principles. Contrary to public belief, I haven't been instructed to commit crimes or provoke crimes or conduct burglaries or inject drugs in people or to commit murder. I haven't been. If anything, my association with the FBI made me a better person.
Before the FBI, William O'Neill was born on April 17, 1948 in Chicago, Illinois. He was raised on the city's west side in a working to middle-class household. By his own account, he had little interest in politics at all. He did not know of the Black Panther Party. He did not know their ideology. He did not understand what they were when he first encountered the name. What defined O'Neill early was not politics, but criminal exposure. By his late teens, he had already accumulated a pattern of illegal activity, including car theft and burglary. In 1968, at the age of 19, O'Neill was arrested by Chicago police while driving a stolen car. When questioned, he did not deny the offense. Instead, he falsely claimed to be an FBI agent and presented a fake badge. The claim did not persuade the officers, but it triggered a referral. The case was forwarded to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
About 3-4 months later, I got a call from this FBI agent by the name of Roy Mitchell. He told me that he knew what I had done, and we talked. We went around a couple of times, and he said something like, well, you know, there's no need in you trying to bullshit me. I know you did it, but it's no big thing. He said, I'm sure we can work it out. One day I got a call, and he told me that it was payback time. He said that I want you to go and see if you can join the Black Panther Party, and if you can, give me a call. The next day, I got on the bus and went down to the office of the Black Panther Party. It was located on Western and Madison. Very little personnel to run things, so positions, it was easy to get a position, so they appointed me as a security captain.
To understand what came next, you have to understand the FBI's position in the late 1960s. The Bureau was not just fighting crime, it was fighting influence.
Focused national attention on the FBI and its director, J. Edgar Hoover. In Washington, Mr. Hoover once more repeated an old warning. The struggle now was against communist subversion.
The communists have been, still are, and always will be a menace to freedom, to democratic ideals, to the worship of God, and to America's way of life. I feel that once public opinion is thoroughly aroused, as it is today, the fight against communism is well on its way. Communist Party of the United States is a fifth column if there ever was one. It is far better organized than were the Nazis in occupied countries prior to their capitulation. They are seeking to weaken America, just as they did in their era of obstruction when they were aligned with the Nazis. Their goal is the overthrow of our government. There is no doubt as to where a real communist loyalty rests. Their allegiance is to Russia, not the United States.
Under Director J. Edgar Hoover, the Bureau treated black nationalist organizations not as political movements, but as internal security threats. The tool used to manage those threats was COINTELPRO, a covert counterintelligence program designed to monitor, disrupt, and neutralize groups deemed dangerous to the existing order.
Secret FBI memos made public today show that the late J. Edgar Hoover ordered a nationwide campaign to disrupt the activities of the New Left without telling any of his superiors about it. The FBI campaign lasted from 1968 until 1971, when Mr. Hoover ended it.
The documents exposed COINTELPRO, the FBI's secret counterintelligence program, a global, clandestine, unconstitutional practice of surveillance, infiltration, and disruption of groups engaged in protest, dissent, and social change. Targets included the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, the American Indian Movement, the Young Lords, anti-war groups, black booksellers, and other groups.
Wrote FBI Director Hoover, the purpose of the program would be to expose and disrupt the New Left. We must frustrate every effort of these groups and individuals to consolidate their forces or to recruit new or youthful adherents. In every instance, consideration should be given to disrupting the organized activity of these groups. Director Hoover detailed the setup of the program, saying anarchists and revolutionists had to be neutralized if law and order and a civilized society were to survive.
Things that I remember most from those files was the truly blanket surveillance of African American people that was described. It was in Philadelphia, but it also prescribed national programs. It was quite stunning. First, it described the surveillance. It took place in every place where people would gather. Churches, classrooms, stores down the street, just everything. But it also specifically prescribed that every FBI agent was supposed to have an informer just for the purpose of coming back every 2 weeks and talking to them about what they had observed.
Well, a typical meeting between my FBI contact, Mitchell, would be downtown Chicago at 11, 12 noon. Down in the basement of at some bar, some dark bar, and I would meet him at the bar. He'd be there when I got in there, and he'd have a drink, and I'd have a drink, and we'd sit there and talk for 15 or 20 minutes, and it was very casual. I mean, it was like I'd come in, and he said, "Oh, what you up to?" And then I'd say, "Well, I'm going down to Champaign on a speaking engagement with Fred, and I'm taking such and such with me, and we're carrying guns, and we're driving this car." And I just rattle it off. 10 or 15 minutes, I'd tell him everything I knew. He didn't have to say very much, because when I joined the Black Panther Party, most of the information that I was giving him at that time was new information to him. So as I grew inside of the party and began to learn things, he grew also.
Inside the FBI, Mitchell was regarded as effective and reliable. An internal bureau evaluation from April 1969 described him as extremely successful, particularly in what the FBI referred to as the racial field. The report noted that Mitchell had developed and was handling an informant inside the Black Panther Party, who was providing intelligence of extreme value.
Not only was I treated, I had been to Mitchell's home. I have held his child in my hands, in my arms when he was 1 year old. I have been through the offices of the FBI wearing sneakers and a dirty t-shirt with Mitchell. I've rode around with him in his car during that time, 3 or 4 months after I became a Panther. I've eaten at his table, at his dinner table. We had at one point, he was a role model for me when I needed one. I mean, we had very few role models back then. We had Malcolm X, we had Martin Luther King, we had Muhammad Ali, and I had an FBI agent.
In internal FBI documents, one concern appeared repeatedly. The Bureau warned of the need to prevent the rise of what it called a Black Messiah, a leader capable of unifying Black nationalist movements, attracting mass support, and translating ideology into organized action. This was not religious language. It was operational language. By 1969, that profile was no longer theoretical.
I might be in jail, I might be anywhere, but when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're gonna have to keep on saying that. You're gonna have to say that I am a proletarian. I am the people. I'm not the pig. You've got to make a distinction. And the people are going to have to attack the pigs. The people are going to have to stand up against the pigs. That's what the Panthers are doing. That's what the Panthers are doing all over the world. We're not a racist organization because we understand that racism is an excuse used for capitalism. And we know that racism is just it's a byproduct of capitalism. If we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism.
Fred Hampton was deputy chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. Although the FBI officially opened a file on him in 1967, later document releases showed he had been monitored since his early teens when he was an NAACP youth leader. Hampton was not only advocating for black liberation, he was organizing across race and class. In Chicago, he helped form the Rainbow Coalition.
Our program basically says what I'm talking about, to serve the needs of the people. We want decent and adequate housing. We want our freedom. And we want education that suits the needs of our people, doesn't deal with the lies of the capitalist system, you see. We're talking about socialist programs for the people. And what we're talking about ultimately is that the people overthrow the ruling class, and take power themselves.
Now, I believe you support the Black Panthers and the Young Lords, is that correct?
We have what we call the Rainbow Coalition, which is a coalition between the Panther Party, the Patriot Party, and the Young Lords organization. This organization expresses solidarity because we recognize this is a class struggle.
Almost immediately after I joined the Panthers, probably within 10 days, I began to realize that the Black Panther Party was a little bit more sophisticated than a gang. The orientation process, the attention they gave to the political climate around the country had me going there for a while. I think the first set of reference books I saw inside the Black Panther Party was the selected works of Mao Zedong, which I had begun to associate with communism. After that, I started seeing books like the Manifesto, the Communist Manifesto of Karl Marx, and then they drew parallels to what was going on in the past revolutions in the various countries, like, for instance, China or Russia, and it was drawing parallels to what was going on in the current political scene within the United States. So I understood them to be a little bit more sophisticated than a gang.
Hampton was not isolating his message within a single community. He was building alliances the government depended on remaining separate. He was turning belief into cooperation. Within the FBI's own framework, Fred Hampton fit the definition of a black messiah. Once that determination was made, confrontation was not the first step. Insertion was. And the informant already in place was William O'Neill. By early 1969, William O'Neill was no longer simply reporting information. He had become embedded inside the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party.
And we had this office building that they felt like wasn't too secure. I started working right away to secure the building, and in that regard, I fell right into the security position. And it got more sophisticated as donations started to flow. As the membership increased as a result of speaking engagements on the school campuses and so forth, my responsibilities doubled, and so I was given a staff of security people, and then I just advanced from that point on.
At the same time, O'Neill was reporting directly to Special Agent Roy Mitchell. His activities were reviewed and approved by FBI supervisors Marlon Johnson and Robert Piper, who oversaw the Racial Matters Squad. People's Law Office documents show that O'Neill's role extended beyond intelligence gathering into active provocation. He drafted a so-called security plan for Panther offices that included nerve gas, electrocution, and gas switches. He supplied a copy of this plan directly to Mitchell. He built an electric chair inside Panther offices to intimidate members he labeled informants. Court testimony shows this was presented as an internal disciplinary tool. O'Neill later claimed he did this at the urging of Fred Hampton and Bobby Rush. but litigation records place responsibility on O'Neill himself. He proposed building a mortar or aircraft device to deliver explosives to Chicago City Hall. This proposal was documented and rejected by Panther leadership. O'Neill repeatedly pushed Panthers toward criminal activity. He encouraged robberies and burglaries. He attempted to recruit Robert Bruce into armed robberies and offered to train him in burglary techniques. In March 1969, O'Neill's role in impelling criminal activities was explicitly approved by Marlin Johnson as a counterintelligence tactic. He was armed constantly. Records show he possessed a carbine, 2 shotguns, and a .45 caliber handgun. When denied firearm purchases in Illinois for lying about his age, he traveled to Milwaukee, bought weapons there, and transported them back to Chicago. He took Panther members to Michigan for live fire target practice. He advocated that Panther Jewel Cook carry a gun while on parole. These proposals were rejected by Fred Hampton and the party's central staff. At the same time, O'Neill was actively working to fracture alliances. In a plan approved by Johnson and Piper, Mitchell instructed O'Neill to create a rift between the Black Panther Party and Students for a Democratic Society. FBI memoranda authorized the use of selected informants to plant suspicion, circulate false narratives, and distribute racist cartoons portraying the Panthers as subordinate to white radicals. O'Neill admitted involvement in these actions, but attempted to shift responsibility onto Hampton and Bobby Rush. People's Law Office records also document O'Neill's role in escalating gang violence. With Mitchell's approval, O'Neill worked to exacerbate tension between the Panthers and the Blackstone Rangers.
Black P-Stones, formerly called the Blackstone Rangers. It was revealed that Jeff Fort, leader of the Stones, had been hired by Coco at a salary of $9,000 a year.
In early April 1969, Hampton, Rush, O'Neill, and others traveled to Robbins, Illinois to mediate a dispute between rival black groups. They were ambushed. O'Neill fired his weapon and later claimed he commandeered a passing car at gunpoint to escape. The following day, Mitchell received instructions from FBI headquarters to capitalize on this violence. O'Neill falsely accused a Vice Lords leader of being an informant, disrupting a proposed alliance. He circulated rumors labeling Panthers as snitches, a tactic explicitly identified in COINTELPRO records as a method to provoke internal violence. Both Mitchell and O'Neill were praised by FBI headquarters for these actions. In late February 1969, Mitchell requested that O'Neill's payments be raised due to his successful counterintelligence activities. The Bureau approved the raise on March 11, 1969. O'Neill's monthly compensation increased to $450, plus expenses. In short, instruction, approval, escalation, reward. By the spring of 1969, O'Neill was not simply observing the Panthers. He was shaping their internal dynamics, pushing them toward criminal exposure, escalating conflict, and feeding the results back to the FBI.
I have known quite a few FBI agents, and I've worked with them for the last 5 or 6 years, and they've never asked me to compromise my morals or my principles. Contrary to public belief, I haven't been instructed to commit crimes or provoke crimes or conduct burglaries or inject drugs in people or to commit murder. I haven't been. If anything, my association with the FBI made me a better person.
How did they treat you?
Right around November, maybe November 13, when 2 police officers were killed by a Black Panther member named Jake Winters on the south side of Chicago. That night, as I understand the gun battle, Jake Winters straddled one of the officers who were wounded in the shootout and performed a coup de grace. a mercy killing. He straddled the officer after the officer was down and put a shotgun to his head and put him out of his misery. I think the Black Panthers took the rap for that one when they really didn't deserve it, because Jake Winters was out there on his own, and he got into a altercation with a guy, and the guy called the police, and the police came, and the shootout broke out. 2 police officers were killed, and Jake Winters were killed. Well, the Panthers took the heat because Jake Winters was a Black Panther. And past that point, I noticed maybe a couple of days after this officer was killed, Mitchell had this grim, solemn atmosphere about himself, and I could tell he was looking for specific criminal violations. He wanted something that he could move on, and I think he may have implied or even expressed that at 1 or 2 points. He expressed his anger over what had happened, the total disregard for life, and that was the first time I ever saw him express a personal opinion about what he thought the Black Panthers were doing.
In November 1969, Mitchell met with O'Neill and instructed him to produce a detailed floor plan of Fred Hampton's apartment. O'Neill complied. The diagram included room layouts, furniture placement, window locations, and the position of Hampton's bed. That document would be used days later.
December 3rd. It was cold that day. It was really a slow day. We were at the office. Hampton was there, Rush was there, the general staff was there. There wasn't too much activity going on streetwise because the weather was so cold. It's a melancholy kind of day. It just came and went. Got down to the evening. We all decided to walk the block from the office to Hampton's house and eat dinner. The women were cooking dinner, a big dinner, I think we had chili and big pot of spaghetti, and most of us that had labored at the office were looking forward to just going over there and eating dinner and reading and just being together. It was just a slow day. It was the last day it was the last type of day where we'd think that anything was going to happen. It was just too quiet, nothing was happening. Totally off guard.
At around 4 a.m., Chicago Police Sergeant Daniel Groth briefed the specially assembled unit using the floor plan provided by O'Neill through Roy Mitchell. The team was heavily armed. They split into 2 groups, positioning officers at the front and rear of the apartment. At approximately 4:45 a.m., police forced entry.
Somebody shaking Fred while we were laying in the bed, saying, Chairman, wake up, the pigs are vamping, the pigs are vamping.
Mark Clark was shot almost immediately. His reflexive discharge of a shotgun was the only round fired by the Panthers. More than 90 shots were fired during the raid. Nearly all came from police weapons. Fred Hampton remained in bed. Witnesses reported that Hampton did not respond to the gunfire. Deborah Johnson later stated that he was unresponsive throughout the raid.
He didn't move, except for moving his head up. He laid his head back down to the side like that. He never said a word. He never got up out the bed. The person who was in the room, they kept hollering out, stop shooting, stop shooting. We have a pregnant woman or a pregnant sister in here. At the time, I was 8.5 to 9 months pregnant. My baby was to be delivered in 2 weeks. Pigs kept on shooting. So he kept on hollering out. Finally, they stopped. They pushed me and the other brother by the kitchen door and told us to face the wall. I heard a pig say, he's barely alive, he'll barely make it. I assume they were talking about Chairman Fred. So then they started shooting the pigs. They started shooting again. I heard the sister scream. They stopped shooting. Pig said, he's good and dead now.
Okay, I listened before. You went to the office that morning and you saw the headline and then it hit you.
Well, it didn't really hit me then. It hit me after I walked into that house. It was cold and it was blood everywhere and it was holes in the wall and then I was, I just began to realize that the information that I supplied leading up to that moment had facilitated that raid. I knew that indirectly I had contributed, and I felt it, and I felt bad about it. And then I got mad. I had, and then I had to conceal those feelings, which made it worse. I couldn't say anything. I just had to continue to play the role. And I think it was at that point that I lost something. I lost something. Everything that I thought we were doing to fight crime had a different message after that. It was a blow. That's the best I can do with that one.
Subsequent testing conducted by Cook County chemist Dr. Eleanor Berman detected high levels of barbiturates in Hampton's blood. The drug identified was secobarbital, a powerful sedative hypnotic. The dosage was consistent with heavy sedation. The source of the drug was never formally established in court. No criminal charges were filed related to its administration.
Fred Hampton drugged. I've never known Fred. I knew him for about 16 months. I've been with him in a lot of different situations. We've been in hotels together. We've been out, he and I alone in the car. I've never known Fred to take drugs. And to take it a step further, Fred would not tolerate anyone even smoking marijuana around him. And I don't think any of us in the hierarchy of the Black Panther Party would dare get drunk or drink. So alcohols and drugs were a no-no. As far as the rumors that he was drugged that night, unless he was on some type of medication, I think it was just rhetoric. I think it was fabricated. As far as the insinuation that myself or someone else in the house would have drugged Fred Hampton, I don't buy it. It was just no way. Fred was the type of person that you didn't have to drug anyway. Fred was always tired. He could get in a car and we couldn't ride 2 blocks without him dozing off. He was a high energy person that ran on very little fuel, and wherever he sat down he was well rested. I've never believed that.
After the raid, both O'Neill and Roy Mitchell received financial bonuses from the FBI. 6 days later, J. Edgar Hoover issued a commendation letter praising Mitchell's handling of a valuable informant.
I thought Fred Hampton was pretty idealistic. He was pretty dedicated to the black struggle. I felt like he gave a lot. He gave his life, and out of 16 months that I knew him, I don't have anything bad to say about him. I'm sorry that he died like he did. He was, in my opinion, he was murdered by the Chicago Police Department. And I feel bad about that. I felt like he was a person that died for what he believed in. Had he lived today, he probably would be a politician, a successful politician.
By 1972, William O'Neill was no longer operating inside political movements. His role had shifted into direct proximity with violent crime. That year, Chicago Police Sergeant Stanley Robinson became the central figure in a federal case involving multiple killings. One of the victims was a young man named Jeff Beard,
black population.
On the night Jeff Beard was killed, Robinson arrested him in Chicago. Beard was handcuffed and placed into custody. Instead of being taken to a police station, he was transported across state lines into Indiana. There, Robinson shot Beard with a .45 caliber handgun and cut his throat. After the killing, Robinson and O'Neill drove back to Chicago together. At some point during that return trip, Robinson handed the murder weapon to O'Neill. The handgun was covered in mud from Robinson's struggle with Beard. O'Neill took the weapon to his father's home. William O'Neill Sr. later testified that the gun was jammed and caked with dirt when he received it. Although he was not instructed to do so, he attempted to clean it. He soaked the gun in a saltwater solution for 24 hours. He disassembled it. He cleaned the barrel using a clothes hanger and cloth. Several days later, the weapon was returned to O'Neill. On May 23rd, 6 days after the murder, the gun was turned over to the FBI. The agent who received it was Roy Mitchell. At trial, Robinson argued that his conviction should be overturned because the destruction of evidence, the cleaning of the weapon, had compromised his defense. The court rejected that argument. The jury was allowed to infer that the Beard killing was an overt act of a broader conspiracy, even if Robinson alone carried it out. The court ruled that O'Neill lacked the criminal intent required to be legally considered part of the conspiracy itself. Other individuals connected to the case were acquitted on conspiracy charges as well.
I know the one thing we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your
By 1990, the story of Fred Hampton was no longer buried. It had resurfaced in documentaries, court records, and public memory. One of the most important moments came when Eyes on the Prize aired an episode revisiting Hampton's assassination.
Fred Hampton, a former NAACP youth organizer, became at age 20 chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party.
Many black people initially was very, very afraid of the Black Panther Party.
I understood where they were trying to go politically and felt that they had to change things. And when I talk about fear, I was afraid they weren't going to do it right.
For the first time, William O'Neill spoke publicly. The broadcast aired on Martin Luther King Day. That night, O'Neill was with his uncle, Ben Hurd. "We were just sitting around drinking beer," Hurd said, "talking to some friends of mine. We had company. The company left, and that's when he started acting kind of strange." Hurd noticed O'Neill repeatedly getting up to go to the bathroom, 10 minutes at a time, then 15, then 20. The last time, O'Neill came out furious. "He came out in a rage. He tried to jump out my living room window. I stopped him. I grabbed him by the ankles. I wrestled with him, but he broke free." At approximately 2:30 a.m., William O'Neill ran out of the apartment barefoot across the westbound lanes of the Eisenhower Expressway and was struck by a car. He died at the scene. His death was ruled a suicide. The driver later told police that O'Neill ran directly into traffic, waving his arms. He tried to swerve. It was too late. Hurd followed the sound down the grassy slope toward the expressway. When he reached the scene, state police were already there. The impact had torn the back of his shirt and pants off, Hurd said. "His eyes were open. I took his pulse. It was hardly anything." Hurd said O'Neill had been haunted since the morning after the raid on Fred Hampton's apartment. The two men went there together. There was papers all over the floor, blood everywhere. A trail of blood from where they dragged Fred's body. O'Neill stood there in shock. He never thought it would come to this. O'Neill spent the rest of his life moving under assumed names, entering witness protection, leaving it, returning to Chicago in secret, trying to work ordinary jobs, trying to stay quiet. Years earlier, in an interview, O'Neill was asked whether cooperating with the FBI had been worth it. "If you ask me if I'm happy," he said, "I'm not happy. No, I'm not even content."
William O'Neill was not a monster. He was not a mastermind. He was a man under pressure, making decisions he believed were survivable. Like Judas, he did not begin as an enemy. He began as someone close enough to matter. This is not a story about villains and heroes. It is a story about proximity, pressure, and the cost of choosing survival over responsibility. This is the story of William O'Neill.